Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Daily Newcastle. I am your host, Michael Grahamslaw, and today we're looking at Newcastle United's 2-2 draw against Bayer Leverkusen at the Bayer Arena in the Champions League. It started dicey and it ended predictably. And before diving into the match itself, let's talk about a big talking point heading into the game, the lineup. With the Tyne and Weir derby looming at the weekend, just a small game. A lot of people wondering whether Eddie Howe would rotate. He told us differently in midweek, but we've learned do not listen to Eddie Howe in press conferences. But as many actually predicted, Newcastle did indeed go full strength. And when that team sheet dropped, it certainly had a bit of a different feel to it, particularly in comparison to some weeks we've seen. This felt like Newcastle United's best 11. For those who aren't aware, the contrast against Burnley, Newcastle stuck to the 4-3-3, Ramsdale and goal, back four of Tino, Share, Malik Chau, Dan Burn, midfield of Joe Willock, Gamares and Jacob Ramsey, and then a front three of Elanga, Voltemada and Gordon. The four changes that Howe made for Leverkusen: Shaw dropped out, was replaced by Lewis Hall, pushing Dan Burn into centre-back alongside Malik Chau. Livramento kept his place. But in midfield, it was Joe Willock and Jacob Ramsey who made way in the biggest changes for Sandro Tonali and Joelinton. And then up front, we saw Harvey Barnes return to the side, replacing Anthony Elanga, with the aim of giving Newcastle United a much more direct route to goal. And to be honest, on paper, it was exactly what we wanted. But at the start of the game, it was far from ideal. Bayer Leverkusen ended up taking the lead very early on from a slightly dodgy set piece. Back post, Tonali's beaten in the air by Andrick. Tonali kind of like Bentancur, just a bit in midweek. Last week, just a little bit, tamer. He is actually looking at the ball at some point, but Andrick beats them all ends up. The header bounces off Bruno Gamares. The header's originally going across goal, hits Gamares on the arse, and goes into the back of the net. When your luck is down, your luck is down. And realistically, it could have got a whole lot worse for the Magpies just 5 minutes later. Malik Chau at the centre of huge VAR controversy. To be honest, I think Newcastle got lucky. Let us know what you think. Should Malik Chau have been sent off against Leverkusen for the incident in the 15th minute? Leverkusen just broke through us far too easily. Schick was bearing down on goal. Tino Livramento is quite close, which I think is the only reason Malik Chau doesn't get the red. He's literally inches away from giving away a penalty, but he gives away the foul. He was possibly going to see red for being the last man. It was very nervy stuff. It was embarrassing defending overall for Newcastle, just because of how open we were in those first 20 minutes, but we got away with one. Malik Chau stayed on the pitch and nearly won the game for Newcastle at the end, but we'll get to that. After those 20 minutes, to be honest, I thought we actually did react quite well. But I'm not sure if that was primarily down to Leverkusen sitting back a little bit more. We struggle to break sides down. So only naturally against Newcastle, you take the lead. Let us break you down because we're not really capable of doing it. And we saw that in the first half. We had 65% of the ball. And still created almost nothing meaningful in that first half. And that is becoming a theme when Newcastle United come up against a bit of a low block, which we did for about the last 20-25 minutes of the first half. Not really what I was expecting from Leverkusen, to be honest, but they were much more pragmatic than you would think. And in the end, it's got them a result. But it did take the second half, and what an action-packed second half it was as well. It's actually brightened the game up. Lewis Hall starts things off with a good chance. Robs the ball. I believe it's of Kwanzaa. It's Kwanzaa who plays the pass. believe it's Poku. He takes the ball off, runs into the box from basically the left flank on the touchline. He runs into the box and drives it low across the box. Flecken, if it's on target, Flecken makes a save. It's slightly off target, but it was a sign of intent from Newcastle that we hadn't seen in the first half. Then the big moment in the game, Voltemada presses Flecken into a mistake that resulted in a penalty. To be honest, some might say it's a little soft. It's a penalty nonetheless. It's one of those Mark Flecken. He could just clear the ball. I don't know if there's a bit of pressing done on the halfway line and Flecken's realised, I can't pass there. He's hesitated with his pass. Took a touch to send it over the left-hand side. Voltemada's got inside him and Flecken has slid and caught Voltemada on the back of the leg. Let's be honest, Voltemada's not doing anything with it if he does get the ball because there's very few people actually around to help. But that doesn't matter. Because there's contact, it's a penalty, and while it might have been soft, it was good for Newcastle, especially. And to be honest, it was a penalty. And Gordon stepped up, and to be honest, I said a few games back when Gordon stepped up for a penalty, I was saying there, no, give it to Voltemada. I'm starting to get a little bit more confident on Anthony Gordon penalties because the last two have been absolutely brilliant finishes. And with Eddie Howe saying he tries the hardest on them in training, he's always practicing them. You can tell by those last two finishes. And with Anthony Gordon's goal to make it 2-1 against Leverkusen, he officially overtook Tino Asprilla and John Beresford as Newcastle United's second highest goal scorer in Champions League history with 5 goals. 5 is a bit low for a team that's been in it 4 or 5 seasons, but it's brilliant to see Gordon get that in one campaign. He has had a very good campaign. A lot of them have been penalties, but you've still got to stick the ball in the back of the net, so credit to him. And from Newcastle getting the equaliser, I'm aware I've just said giving us the lead. From Gordon giving us the equaliser, we actually looked pretty comfortable and it looked like we were going to be the team to take the lead. Gordon hits the post pretty suddenly by a shot from the left flank, cutting inside like he does. The second act came from Lewis Miley, who came on as a substitute for the injured Joelinton. Miley comes on and scores a brilliant header. It's a fantastic cross from Anthony Gordon on the left-hand side. And while I thought he was poor in the first half, Anthony Gordon's performance in the second was fantastic. First half might have been a 0 out of 10, but the second half was a 9 or a 10. So really built it up and had a good game in the end. So credit to him. And then another player who had a fantastic game was the goal scorer, obviously, Lewis Miley. When he came on, I was saying to the rest of the team at half-time, Lewis Miley on for Joelinton seems like the obvious move here because Joelinton's not doing much and Lewis Miley's been fantastic when he played. And you need someone, when they're going to sit back, you need someone who's just a little bit better on the ball, which is why it was Miley over Joe Willock. And obviously Jacob Ramsey, after the accident against Burnley, can't be trusted, unfortunately, at this moment. So Miley, it seemed pretty destined that he was going to come on. I thought Murphy would as well for Barnes, and that's what happened as well. Both looked decent when they came on in their cameos. Malik Chau had a couple of chances. One before, we score. One at 2-1, one at 2-2. The first is a header back post. Great save by Flecken. The ball is actually behind Flecken by the time he makes a save. And we've seen him make a few of those in the Premier League, so wasn't much of a surprise. But a great save nonetheless. Murphy struck the post in very similar fashion to Gordon. Shot cutting in from the left-hand side after the corner that came from the save from Flecken, which is why Murphy was on the left side rather than the right. And at that point, you're looking at Newcastle and going, surely only one team is going to win this. And then the momentum shifts pretty much straight away after Jacob Murphy hits the post. As Leverkusen go up the other end, Newcastle win the ball back and we start trying to play it out from the back a little bit. Leverkusen start to press, and Ramsdale has a bit of a shaky moment playing it out from the back. He redeems himself fantastically with a great save to deny Nathan Tella. Overall, I'm not quite sure how I felt about Ramsdale's performance, but there was a couple of good saves in there, and considering the issue I had with him against Burnley was that every shot seemed to go in, probably can't complain too much, but that was a moment that sort of changed the momentum, and eventually that pressure told. Grimaldo equalised, and I said in the build-up with Ian, he was the one to watch. Newcastle just sat off him a little bit too much. I did feel like the changes that came after the goal should have maybe come 5 minutes earlier. Tonali and Bruno both looked knackered. Both guilty of not closing down enough, maybe. It's harsh because you're 88 minutes into the game. But Tonali makes very little effort to get the ball as it just goes past him. Bruno is a little bit slow in realising where his man is. Again, I'm nitpicking a little bit here. But the ball ends up going through to Grimaldo, who finishes very clinically with a pass low and beyond Ramsdale. Punished by probably the best player on the park, realistically. But it's yet again another point drop for Newcastle. And I'm going to go into just our quick advert from Bionic before I go into how I feel about the overall game, but you can probably imagine. But on a better note, it's Bionic.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionic, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionic provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionic. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
So nice, I had to stop it and then play it twice. That's what happens when you don't have your volume on, everybody. And to be fair, I might not even mention it, and I might just cut it out like a professional. Or I might just keep it in and show how terrible I am at this. But at the end of the day, bloopers come all around. And bloopers define Newcastle United after the 85th minute. So many goals conceded from absolutely terrible moments at the back. And this felt like another set-piece goal conceded early in the game this time. And then another goal late in the game, 2 points dropped. And it is becoming a sickening reoccurrence for Eddie Howe's men. Literally, in our group chat we have between the team, I said as soon as the second goal went in, now we've just got to survive not conceding at the end. And then as soon as we did, called it. You knew it was going to happen. Even though Leverkusen didn't do anything for 12 minutes after we scored, he was still sitting there the whole time going, yeah, we might concede here. It's probably going to be an equaliser, isn't it? And unfortunately, that late equaliser does mean it's very likely that Newcastle United will end up in the playoff round unless they get something in Paris against Paris Saint-Germain, who also dropped points today. They drew against Athletic Club, who obviously Newcastle beat at St James's Park. But that also means that on 13 points, there is the potential that Paris Saint-Germain need to get something from that game to qualify as well. So they will face, I believe it's Sporting Lisbon away from home before playing Newcastle. Lisbon haven't been too bad in the competition themselves. If PSG win, then there's the potential that they don't go all out, desperation, knockout style behaviour against Newcastle United. Because the PSG of now isn't the PSG we beat 4-1, and I know it was 2 years ago. So it's, it does kind of feel like the same team, but these are the champions. These are different gravy, should we say? But yeah, and to be honest, after leading in Marseille and in Leverkusen, it does really feel like we've let something special slip, because if you hold on to those 2 wins, Newcastle would be sat on 14 points and third in the Champions League table, and would be sitting here knowing that a win against PSV would mean we'd go into PSG not needing anything to qualify really for that top 6. But what it does mean is that Newcastle United, with that point, it does look like we've qualified for the next stage of the Champions League. I say that because we're 4 points clear of elimination with 2 games left to play. One of them is at home. Even if we just get a draw, it does look like that'd be enough. So qualifying for the next round does feel like a bit of a box ticked at this point. It was kind of expected. I think at the start of the campaign, we were predicting 13, 14 points. I think, to be fair, I think Ian and Joe went as far as to say 18 to 20. But I always kind of thought we'd be in a bit of a difficult position, and we'd be in around that 14th, 13th spot, which is, where we are going to be. We're 12th in the Premier League now. We're 12th in the Champions League. At least we're consistent, although I'd wish we weren't so consistent and throwing leads away. But a little bit of a fun little thing here. If everything stayed the same after 8 games, Newcastle's opponent in that playoff round would be PSV, who obviously we play in our next game. And it is pointless to speculate who we might play in that next round. But when you look at some of the teams in and around there, there's one that really you do want to avoid, and that would be Napoli, who have been pretty terrible in the Champions League, actually. But on paper, they look like a brilliant side. There's no Manchester Cities, Real Madrids, PSGs in that bottom 8 this time. They all look like, to be honest, even those 25th to 32nd, there is no one there that you would look at and go, you know what, I don't fancy Newcastle over 2 legs. I think Bayer Leverkusen, if we played them at home, we'd get the better of them. Same with Monaco. And we'd be able to hold out away from home. The only place I don't fancy going away, that'd be Karabakh. And the only team I wouldn't really fancy facing, as I say, would be Napoli. But Copenhagen are in there, PSV, Bayer Leverkusen, Monaco, and then Galatasaray are there in 18th. But they would probably need to lose both their next games to be in a position where they'd play a team in the top, well, between 9th and 13th. So PSV has become a pretty big game, because if you lose both of those games, you're on 10 points. Then all of a sudden you're looking at potentially playing maybe in Milan, who've just lost 2 on the bounce. But four wins before that, Champions League finalists, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Liverpool, Borussia Dortmund, potentially Barcelona again. So it's one of those where it feels like we've just crawled over the line, but PSV is a must win. And we might even feel like we need to get something against PSG. But it does look like Newcastle have qualified. Job done in that respect. I think we would have taken a draw. Well, I know we would have taken a draw before proceedings kicked off. So it's not the end of the world. It's just another sucker punch. And to be fair, I'm kind of getting used to it. But that's all from us. I've been Michael Grahamslaw. Check us out wherever you find your podcasts, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever. Check out our social media platforms, GSPN Newcastle, where you'll get some special little Christmas content over the festive period. And you can even check us out on the radio by checking out NUFC Talk TV radio station. But for now, it's another 2 points dropped into the derby at the weekend, but it was still a good performance. Heads high, and let's smack a Mackham. See you later. Don't take that literally, by the way.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.